What if I told you that dreams about losing your teeth aren't about vanity, aren't about aging fears, and definitely aren't your subconscious worried about dental bills, but your soul's desperate attempt to show you what happens when you stop speaking your truth? Jack Nielsen thought his recurring teeth dreams were stress from his demanding corporate job. But when those dreams began bleeding into his waking life in ways that defied medical explanation, he discovered they were actually his psyche's last-ditch effort to save him from a fate worse than death, a life lived in complete silence of who he really was. Before we sink our teeth into Jack's extraordinary transformation, here's something fascinating. The most powerful truths are often the ones we're most afraid to speak. If you're ready to discover what your dreams are really trying to tell you, subscribe to the Dream Decoder. Because by the end of Jack's story, you'll understand why sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what you never knew you had. 34-year-old Jack Nielsen had everything his immigrant parents had dreamed of when they arrived from Taiwan 35 years earlier. A corner office on the 42nd floor of a Seattle skyscraper. A salary that made his father cry with pride. Respect from colleagues who hung on his every word during board meetings. Jack had been the golden child valedictorian in high school, Harvard MBA, fast-tracked to senior management at one of the country's most prestigious consulting firms. He spoke 3 languages fluently, had traveled to 47 countries, and could navigate any corporate crisis with surgical precision. But here's what none of his colleagues knew. Jack hadn't said what he actually thought about anything in over 8 years. In college, Jack had been different. He'd led environmental protests, written poetry that professors called devastatingly honest, spent weekends volunteering at homeless shelters. His friends knew him as someone who never hesitated to speak truth to power. But the corporate world had slowly, methodically, trained him to swallow his authentic voice. First, it was small compromises. Maybe don't mention your concerns about that oil company client. Then bigger ones. We need team players, Jack, not philosophers. Now, Jack spent his evenings in his luxury apartment, reading news that filled him with rage, watching documentaries about injustices he could help solve, feeling passionate about causes he never mentioned to anyone. He'd become fluent in the language of corporate success and completely mute in the dialect of his own soul. That's when the teeth dreams began. And with them, a message from his subconscious that would either wake him up or destroy him completely. The first teeth dream came on a Tuesday night, after Jack had spent the day presenting a strategy to help a pharmaceutical company minimize liability for price-gouging life-saving medications. In the dream, Jack was giving the same presentation. But this time, instead of the carefully crafted corporate speak he'd used that day, he found himself telling the truth. What we're really doing here, Dream Jack heard himself say, is helping this company find legal ways to let people die for profit. These aren't market dynamics, they're moral choices, and we're on the wrong side. But as these true words poured out of him, Jack felt something strange in his mouth. A looseness, a shifting. When he reached up to touch his lips, his front tooth came away in his fingers. The more truth Jack spoke, the more teeth fell from his mouth. Not painfully, they simply loosened and dropped into his palms like pearls. But instead of stopping, Dream Jack felt compelled to keep talking. This isn't consulting, he continued, his words slightly slurred but more powerful than ever. This is moral laundering. We're the smart people who help evil look professional. Jack woke up with his hands already at his mouth, frantically checking that his teeth were intact. They were. But the taste of truth lingered on his tongue like copper pennies. Standing in his bathroom, looking at his reflection, Jack realized something disturbing. In the dream, even toothless and bloody, he'd felt more powerful than he had in years. The teeth dreams came every night for 3 weeks. And each time, the pattern was the same. The more authentic Jack became in the dream, the more teeth he lost. He dreamed of telling his parents he hated his job and wanted to write poetry again. His molars crumbled like chalk. He dreamed of confronting his boss about the firm's most unethical clients. his canines fell out like dominoes. He dreamed of standing up at a community meeting to speak about housing justice. His incisors dissolved on his tongue. Jack started keeping a dream journal. Page after page documented the same phenomenon. Every time his dream self accessed his authentic voice, his teeth paid the price. But here's where the story gets strange. Jack began checking his teeth compulsively during waking hours. In meetings, while eating, during conversations, his tongue constantly probing, his fingers frequently touching his lips. Then, after the 15th night of teeth dreams, Jack noticed something impossible. Looking in his bathroom mirror, there was a hairline crack in his left front tooth. A crack that definitely hadn't been there the week before. His dentist found nothing wrong. X-rays showed perfect dental health. But Jack could see the crack, could feel it with his tongue. It was real. During lunch with his old college roommate David, Jack found himself mid-sentence when David stopped him. "Dude, you've touched your mouth like 12 times in the last 5 minutes. What's going on?" Jack almost told him. The words were right there. "I'm having these dreams where speaking the truth makes my teeth fall out, and I think it's actually happening." But instead, he heard himself say, "Just some work stress. Nothing major." That night, the crack in Jack's tooth was noticeably larger. The breaking point came during the biggest presentation of Jack's career. His firm was pitching a massive contract to help a private prison company expand operations in underserved communities. Jack had spent weeks crafting the perfect pitch, full of euphemisms like justice partnerships and community safety solutions that made mass incarceration sound like civic improvement. But as Jack caught his reflection in the conference room window, he saw that the cracks had spread. 3 teeth now showed hairline fractures that seemed to pulse with his heartbeat. Jack began his presentation with practiced corporate confidence. "We're here today to discuss innovative approaches to justice sector growth." But mid-sentence, he felt it. His front tooth, the one with the biggest crack, actually shifted in his mouth. Not a dream. Not imagination. It moved. Jack stopped mid-sentence, his hand flying to his mouth. 23 executives stared at him expectantly. His entire career balanced on what he said next. And in that moment, Jack saw himself clearly, a man so disconnected from his own values that his body was literally falling apart to get his attention. "I can't do this," Jack said, his voice quiet but carrying clearly through the silent room. And as those true words left his mouth, his front tooth fell onto the polished conference table with a small, distinct click. The room fell into stunned silence. But instead of the horror Jack expected to feel, something else washed over him. Relief. Pure, flooding relief. "What we're really selling here," Jack continued, his words slightly slurred but clearer than they'd been in years, "is human misery packaged as social good. And I won't be part of it anymore." Another tooth joined the first on the table. Jack walked out of that conference room, out of that building, and out of his corporate life with 3 teeth in his pocket and blood on his designer shirt. But for the first time in 8 years, he felt like himself. That night, looking in his bathroom mirror at the gaps in his smile, Jack understood something profound. The dreams hadn't been warning him about losing his teeth, they'd been showing him what he'd already lost. His authentic voice, his integrity, his connection to his own values. Every time he'd swallowed his truth, every time he'd smiled while saying things he didn't believe, he'd been grinding away at something far more precious than dental enamel. For the first time in years, Jack wrote in a journal, not dream analysis, but honest thoughts. Pages poured out of him. Anger at systems he'd helped perpetuate. Grief for the years he'd spent as a stranger to himself. Hope for who he might still become. He called David and told him everything, the dreams, the tooth falling out during the presentation, the relief of finally speaking truth. David listened without judgment, then said something that changed everything. "Jack," David said, "I've been waiting 8 years for you to come back. I've missed my friend." It was the first time anyone had acknowledged that the corporate Jack wasn't the real one. Over the following days, Jack researched dental implants. But he also looked into creative writing programs, social justice organizations, and ways to use his business skills for causes he actually cared about. The revelation hit him like lightning. His subconscious had been trying to save him. The teeth dreams weren't punishment for speaking truth, they were his psyche's desperate attempt to show him what silence was costing him. 6 months later, Jack had perfect teeth again, thanks to dental implants. But more importantly, he was working at a small non-profit law firm that fought corporate corruption. His first major case was against his former client, the pharmaceutical company he'd once helped protect. This time, Jack stood in court arguing for families who couldn't afford their medications. He started teaching weekend workshops on ethical business practices. Students were drawn to his authenticity, his willingness to discuss his own moral compromises and recovery from them. Jack began writing poetry again. His first published piece in over a decade was titled, "What I Lost When I Stopped Losing Teeth." It won a local literary award. The hardest conversation was with his parents. Jack told them about his career change, his reduced salary, his return to writing. His father was silent for a long time, then said, "I came to America so you could choose your own life. I'm proud you finally did." Jack still dreams about teeth sometimes. But now, in his dreams, when he speaks his truth, his teeth grow stronger, whiter, more rooted. His subconscious has become his ally instead of his tormentor. His income dropped by 60%. His stress levels dropped by 90%. His sense of purpose increased immeasurably. A year later, Jack was invited to speak at a business ethics conference. His topic, "The True Cost of Corporate Silence, a Personal Case Study." He spoke for 40 minutes without losing a single tooth. Now, some of you might be hesitating to hit that like button, worried it might seem too enthusiastic. Here's the truth, authentic engagement is like Jack's journey. It might feel risky at first, but it's the only way to build something real. Subscribe to the Dream Decoder and hit that notification bell. Think of it as joining a community of people who've decided that speaking truth is worth more than keeping comfortable lies. And tell us in the comments, what truths have you been swallowing? What would happen if you finally let them out? If Jack's story resonates with you, you'll love our comprehensive guide, The Dream Decoder, Unlocking the Hidden Messages in Your Sleep Volume 1. It includes detailed analysis of the most common dream types, other incredible stories to help you decode your own subconscious messages. Psychologically, teeth loss dreams are among the most universal human experiences, reported across all cultures and age groups. They primarily activate brain regions associated with anxiety, loss of control, and suppressed communication. While Freud interpreted teeth dreams as sexual anxiety, modern psychology recognizes them as expressions of powerlessness, fear of judgment, and most critically, the consequences of not expressing our authentic selves. Recent studies show that teeth loss dreams spike during periods of major life transitions, moral conflicts, and times when people feel forced to say things they don't believe. They're literally dreams about the cost of not speaking your truth. The most effective therapy for recurring teeth dreams isn't anxiety management. It's helping people identify where in their waking life they've been silencing their authentic voice. When people begin expressing themselves honestly, the teeth dreams typically stop. Spiritually, teeth represent our ability to bite into life experiences, to stand our ground, and to communicate our soul's truth. Indigenous traditions often see teeth loss dreams as warnings that we're losing our spiritual power through dishonesty. In Eastern traditions, teeth dreams connect to the throat chakra, our center of authentic communication. When this energy center is blocked by unexpressed truth, the blockage often manifests symbolically through teeth imagery in dreams. Shamanic traditions teach that teeth are anchors for the soul in physical reality. Losing teeth in dreams can indicate that our spirit is trying to break free from false personas we've constructed to fit social expectations. Many esoteric schools teach that teeth are crystalline structures that focus our creative and communicative power. Dreams of losing teeth reveal where we've been scattering this power through inauthentic speech and suppressed truth. The alchemical interpretation suggests that teeth-loss dreams represent the dissolution of false selves, a necessary breaking down that allows our authentic truth to emerge, transformed and purified. Tonight, millions of people will dream of losing their teeth. Some will wake in anxiety, missing the message. Others, like Jack learned, will recognize these dreams as invitations to reclaim their authentic voice. Thank you for joining us on Jack's profound journey from corporate silence to authentic truth-telling. Remember, fellow Dream Decoders, your voice matters. Your truth has power. And sometimes losing what feels precious is the only way to find what's actually priceless. Sweet dreams, and may your teeth stay strong as you find the courage to speak your truth.